Lamantia, and I'm here with the beautiful Trisha Fisk.
Good morning, everybody.
Her hair's all glowy. It's very pretty to see. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. The
So
sun's
today,
coming in through my
yes,
window.
who doesn't love that? So today our topic is don't take in other people's stuff with stuff in capitals, right? Um, And as we journey on in this energy conscious creating experience, we are all into, running into each other, and we all have energy systems and signatures. We all enter different experiences in our life. And even just walking in the grocery store, everybody has a different energy bubble around them. And as we move through life, we bounce into people and their energy, if we're not conscious, we can take it in or take it on, especially with family or friends or any interaction. It's kind of fascinating when all of a sudden we are absorbing other people's energy. And so today we're going to talk about when this happens, how this happens, and what to do if it does, because it's inevitably going to happen all day. And so being conscious about not taking on other people's stuff. And when Trisha suggested this, she said taking in other people's stuff. And my mind said taking on other people's stuff. And I really want to note how different those two are. And interestingly enough, how we do it unconsciously, because in feels like I'm digesting, on feels like I'm taking responsibility for. And both of them are what we're talking about today as to really pay attention to and not do. How would,
Right.
so Trish, I'm going to turn it over to you because you have very specific examples too from this weekend.
Yeah. And I hadn't even thought of in or on in those terms at all. And that makes me think of something else, and that's people who are empaths, who are very,
Yeah, they
who
keep,
really do.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a
Yeah.
sponge. They sponge it in. And
Right,
so,
right. But yeah, but let's start. I'd like to start talking about for years I've been teaching 200-hour, 250-hour teacher trainings for people who want to be yoga teachers. And it usually, we do opening circle and it's about how they've been inspired by yoga and they love it and they want to share that with other people. But the program, Prairie Yoga's yoga teacher training program is a very thorough program, and
it's intensive.
it's
Might
very,
even go
yeah,
intense.
yeah,
It's
it's
thorough,
a
yes.
lot of homework, a lot of reading, a lot of, yeah, and we cover what we really want to explore and demonstrate to people how yoga is so much more than just asana. It's so much more than a physical practice. So
Mhm.
it's a lot. It's a
Mhm.
big program, and people come in and think being a yoga teacher is no big deal. You just get up and teach class. And
Mhm. Mhm.
normally the first few months are kind of overwhelming. Like I
Mhm.
said, there's a lot of homework, and you can kind of watch people freak out a little bit and
Mhm.
become a bit overwhelmed because they thought, oh, I was just going to be a yoga teacher. I didn't realize this is a whole science and art, and then I kind of watch while they decide, are they going to do it, are they going to jump in, are they okay with not knowing,
Mhm.
or are they not okay with not knowing?
Mhm.
Is it going to really bump them and push them
Mhm.
against their limits?
Their
So
stuff.
yeah, there's stuff. So it's kind of fascinating, and I've had interesting interactions with people based on how they do this. It's not unusual to have someone go through half the program and then suddenly drop out and decide they can't do it. About halfway through, each person in the training teaches with a couple other people a community class. So they're actually going to get up and teach two people. And that's when another freak out starts to happen. And like I said, it's not unusual for people to drop out. But I had someone in training who's a business person, and just really challenged everything. Every lecture challenged it, um, challenged our ideas for how to sequence safely, challenged our ideas for how to queue safely for people, even though these are systems that we've been doing for more than 20 years,
Right.
27, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so it's just kind of interesting. And I've seen this so much that I really have found that in teacher training, I recognize when somebody's starting to hit a wall, and I've learned to separate myself from their stuff, be
Mhm.
there to support them and offer them support, but not react to or take on that stuff. And one of the reasons I want to mention that is because, as we were discussing before this started, I'm not so good at doing that with my own family, right?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
usually is after I react or blow up that it's like, oh, look what I did.
Right.
I got caught in their stuff. Right.
Right.
Where in the teaching environment, um, I'm more, I have a better eye for seeing it before I react.
Well, and I've noticed because I've watched you because I've taken many of your classes, you do have an objectivity and it's like you're holding space. You're not getting in there with you are very good at nurturing and caring, but not trying to fix or, like you said, move them in a direction that they're obviously deciding if they're ready for or not. So
Right.
I think that's a beautiful discipline and capability. It's almost, like master level capability that you've developed because being a teacher, because teacher has to have objectivity and they have to
Right.
hold the space while, the students do their experiencing and learning. So what a great discipline. And that's what we're talking about, taking that discipline, developing it, and applying it to your life.
Right. And your friends and your family
Right.
members, because let's
Yes.
face it, your family members for sure are going to push your buttons at some point, and your friends as well. Just having a different, coming from a different background, having a different perspective. It just, yeah.
Right. They're living
So,
their life as
yes,
are you. And I think that was one of the things we talked about is having that clarity and presence. We talked about that before we started. Having clarity and checking in. Is this mine? And we've talked about this for a couple of the podcasts now, this checking in, is this mine? So that you are really being conscious about, am I taking this on? Should I be? Or am I taking this in? And, is it in my highest and best good? Should I be? And I know should is a tough word, but we've got to get really clear about, is this mine? And do I really want to allow it to come into my energy system?
right. And it's not just about that. It's about, if I feel that I have to take over someone else's stuff and fix it for them, then I'm not honoring them as wise beings at
Right.
all.
Yeah, on their
I'm
journey, right?
making, right,
Mhm.
I'm making the assumption that I have the
I know
answers for
better,
them.
right?
Right, right. My way of doing this is better than yours. Right. It's
Right.
demeaning to them, actually, to not trust them. And I do have an example of that about my son when he was a teenager. He real Marijuana wasn't legal yet, but he enjoyed that.
Mhm.
And we spent a lot of time in the courthouse because of course he got caught. And so we were, we were at the court. And I just remember at some point deciding that I had to really trust him. I had to trust that he was learning from this experience in a way to protect himself better. I
Mhm.
really didn't have a problem with the fact that he liked to use marijuana, but he was not being smart in our legal system
Right.
to avoid being caught.
Right.
So yeah, I remember sitting there and making a decision to really turn it over to him and to trust him. And it did, it turned out beautifully.
Mm. And then what a
Yeah.
great shift, because I do think people can feel that. Feel, we're
Yes.
talking about energy, and people can feel the energy of I don't trust you versus I totally trust you. They feel the difference between I don't like you and I do, I love you. I mean, we are antennas, and our bodies are the most magnificent energy sensors, communicators, translators that, has ever been created. And even though our mind is not conscious, we're sending out a vibration all the time.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
vibration of trust and I honor you and I know you can figure this out. That's such a generous thing to do. And it's such a kindness. I put like three key things that we should think about as we, are becoming conscious about not taking in somebody else's stuff. And it's that because sometimes it feels like our responsibility, especially as a mom. But what a
Right.
what a kindness and what a respectful thing to do to say, I know there's something inside of you. I've guided you, but I trust you to make wise and involved decisions. Evolve.
Right. Right. And sometimes I think people do use their stuff as a way of not dealing it with, pushing it off on someone else as a way of not dealing it with themselves
Totally.
too, which is
Totally.
another reason to not take it on. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
And I put these three key things to remember is, remember that it's a kindness to let them be sovereign, but two, to have boundaries. You get to have boundaries and you get to
Yes.
feel even even if somebody's saying something and it doesn't sound like if your body's going, "Ugh, ugh, ugh, alert, alert, or something weird about that. Having a sense of your energy field so you can have boundaries and of course, owning your yes and no, which is one of the most powerful things, is giving yourself permission to have your yes and to know what your NO is, KNO, what your NO is, because that also gives you clarity about how to, is this my stuff? Do I want this to be my stuff? That conscious choice, that consciousness is one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself and another.
Absolutely. Yes. And boundaries, so important. Gosh, especially with family.
Right.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to learn a kind yes and a kind no. Like,
Mm.
oh, that just doesn't feel like a good, fit for me now. Or thanks for sharing that. I'm not ready for that. Or, I got to go to the bathroom. Like, oh, geez, I gotta go to the bathroom really bad right now. That's me kind of pulling myself out and saying, what am I going to do with this? Or give yourself a timeout so that you can decide. This is the cool thing about becoming an energy, consciousness is you get to decide. And you might decide, I will help out in this way, you know.
Right.
At least you're making a conscious choice about it versus being thrown on you or you feel like you have to. And then you get depleted in all kinds of other weird, icky, anger, frustration, rage, all kinds of stuff comes from that. But we are talking about being power creators here, and power creators really get clear about what's
Yes.
their stuff and what they're willing to take on and not take on.
Right. And I love the boundaries, being kind with your boundaries too. That's because that respects the person that you're dealing with as well as yourself. I'm not making a boundary because you're bad or wrong. I'm creating this boundary is about honoring and respecting us both.
Yes, totally. And I
So
know
that,
lately I've been practicing because sometimes I'm clear, I'm like, no, and I've been, and because I'm trying to even understand what my boundaries are. And I'm hoping that as I become more mature, a cosmic adult, I get and I think you do this beautifully. I've watched you with your students, and you're a beautiful teacher, but you have beautiful boundaries. And I watch you use your boundaries in all kinds of different ways. You're very gracious, but I've also seen you be like, yeah, that's not a thing. We're not doing that. And it's a really cool thing to see and I've watched a lot of wonderful moms who have that. They're kind, and okay, we're not doing that anymore. They do. They know what their limits are, and it's okay to have those. In fact, it's more than okay. It's necessary to being a power creator on earth and to be a be clear. Um,
Absolutely. Yes.
I was I was with some ladies over the weekend, and a couple, I wanted, a couple of them have an energy signature, let's say, of scarcity. And I was noticing it. Just like observation, like, oh, this is interesting that, everybody has a different signature that they bring into an environment. And, especially when you're born and you respect somebody, like if your mom or your dad or a grandparent, they have an energy signature. And you might take it on because you think, oh, well, that's what you do in the world. So family also is teaching you how you're quote unquote supposed to be. And as we become more conscious and more grown up, we decide, is that the energy signature I want? Am I going to be afraid? Am I going to be worried about money? Am I going to worry about, or, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be afraid of this or that. So now I'm kind of getting a little esoteric here, but this has a lot to do with abundance consciousness. And a lot of times when you start to develop your abundance consciousness, you'll start to notice when other people are giving into the fear around scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
again, consciousness around, is this my stuff? Do I want to take on their beliefs about money, about wherewithal, about abundance?
Right. I wanted to mention too, like I have a friend she's an empath. There's just no question about that. We can be shopping and someone will walk up to talk to her, and when that person walks away, she can tell me 10 things about that person. And I'm like, what? How
Right?
did
How'd
you
you pick
pick
that?
that up in a 5 minute conversation? But that also, she has difficulty like letting go. That's not my stuff. And I know many people are empaths, and it is that laying boundaries and being okay with that is very important for their own mental health, physical health, even because there's a point where um, taking on other people's stuff can start to affect you physically as well.
Totally. Yeah. And then you
Yeah.
don't know who you are. You're just them.
Right.
You're everybody else. And then you're not your own
Right.
sovereign self. And last week we talked about meditating or taking a shower in white light or noticing the drains in your feet.
Right.
Learning your tools for clearing yourself when you do take on other people's stuff. Because it does happen. Paul Santos, Sage, we talked about this last week for sure, but really getting conscious about when you are taking it in. And sometimes you'll know, I mean, not sometimes, all the time, you'll feel your energy go, "Ugh," or
Right.
something will feel weird. And getting to know yourself when your energy shifts is really so important on this journey. Because otherwise, you're just getting popped around by everybody's stuff. Boom, boom, but you're like a pink pachinko ball. Bang, 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 bang. No, I don't want to get buffeted around by everybody's, mindless, thoughtless, unconscious energy. Sorry, that's a very big judgment. Whoopsie daisy. But, let's be clear, not everybody's walking around with high consciousness, high awareness.
Right. Not, right. Not everybody's walking around looking to learn more about who they really are and developing, stepping into the higher consciousness too. That is
Right.
absolutely true.
And I want to say high consciousness, I don't mean that as better. I just mean an awareness of what we're doing with our energy, where we're putting it, how we're putting it.
Right. And you mentioned before we started a book
Oh,
that
let
you
them.
had read.
Yeah, let
Yeah.
them. And it's basically, I haven't actually read it. A friend of mine told me about it, and it's been on the New York Times bestseller list. And it's basically let them have their journey, let them have their choices, let them have their experience. And we talked about this earlier. That's powerful and it's
Yes.
respectful. So
Yes.
one of my other favorite quotes is from Wayne Dyer, talking about Maslow's hierarchy of wisdom, I'll call it. Be independent of the good opinion of other people. And that independence is self-actualization. It's the clarity, I know who I am and I know who I'm not. And I don't take on other people's opinion unless maybe I'll look at it, but I won't take it in and I won't take it on unless it, you know, flows through my discernment and I make a choice about it. And I think opinion, I would actually expand into not just what they say, but also feeling into what their energy. Sometimes we're not independent. Like I went to the doctor's office. Oh my God, what a bunch of stuff flying around in there. I put my bubble on, I put my white light on, I really wanted to be conscious of not taking on the fear, the worry, the scare. There's so much going on there. And then of course I put white light around all of it and showered the whole place and sent them love. I sent them love and said, I hope you can move through this with love and light and in the highest and best and fast and holiest way. And then I ran out of there like a gazelle. But so being conscious of different energies of environments is what we're talking about. The stuff that's
Yes.
going on in places, the stuff that's going on in your families. There's a lot of stuff.
Yes. Always. And that's never going to change.
No,
So
that's
the clearer you can be helps, again, the point we're making, it not only serves you, but it serves the person that you're interacting with or trying to rescue or whatever it
right,
is. It
right.
serves them too.
Yes. I do love kindness. And I think I would leave this conversation in my heart, that people have stuff, we can have compassion for them, and we can be in our hearts with kindness, and love while not, thinking that we need to do anything more than that
Right. if
unless we're
we if we
super called.
if we really believe, which I do, that everything that we come into life with is meant to serve us, to bring us closer to our divinity, then whatever issues are in my life are perfect for getting to that place. They're the lessons I came into this life to learn.
Right,
So
so I
I
can
don't.
be an expanded,
Yes.
most
So
divine, the most
we're,
heavenly.
yes, closer and closer and closer until I'm no,
Right.
I'm there. Right.
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 Or die
So,
trying. No, Claire can't say sleep.
right. Right. That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's no way. I'm not meant to solve anybody else's problems.
What a great gift to self and others, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the divine's got it. Who are we to think we got it better than this? Like
Right. That we know
beyond,
better.
right? I think it was Einstein who said, we live in the most intelligent universe. I mean, it is intelligence beyond every kind of intelligence. I mean, E equals MC squared, baby stuff for the intelligence that's organizing everything. Um, if we lean into that, we can have kindness and know, like you said for your son, I trust you. I know. I honor you. I see you in your most divine self. And wow, exciting, excited to watch how you're going to get through this and make it, and
I
go forward. So I hope everybody's feeling the opportunity to not talk, to take on other people's stuff, and the generosity to self and the other.
Beautiful.
Namaste, everyone, and have a great week and a clear, free week. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can already
Swaha.
feel the dust being dusted off.
Right.
Swaha.